TCU baseball's season ends rather abruptly up in Corvallis, Oregon. Plus, two former football coaches are on the Hall of Fame ballot for college football, and TCU track and field still running. Got a couple folks headed to the national championships here in early June. We're going to get into all of that next on Frogs Insider. Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treewasser, as always, breaking down the latest and the greatest in TCU athletics for you. Melissa, how
Jamie,
are you?
I was telling you before we started recording, but I am coaching little kids flag football camp this week, and as a high school teacher, I don't know what to do when so many of them are crying for reasons they cannot fully explain to me.
So, flag football, boys and girls?
Uh, it was a co-ed camp. It is just boys, but we are
Okay.
working with soccer as well, so there are some girls there.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, they're little.
Ages? Oh,
As small as just finished kindergarten to as big as in just finished fifth grade. So quite the age range. Quite the
wow.
and one of our very competitive, very talented. This kid's got an arm. Sonny, you might want to get on over to the Oak Ridge School, check out the fifth grade class of 2030, whatever. But at one point, he like looked at this poor little 8-year-old who's like, "Why did you do that?" And I looked over at him and I was like, "Cause he's 8. Like you have
Yeah.
to remember, he is 8." He's like,
Mm-hmm.
got it. But it's really sweet to see the older kids get super hyped up for the younger kids when they do something and to like find a way to make them feel successful. But I want to die. I like high school kids. That's how I know. Wait, I don't want to say it like that. I
Hmm.
can handle being
Hmm.
around high school kids in a way that I don't know how to handle being around 6-year-olds for more than like an hour at a time. So, but we're having fun. We're learning some stuff. We're having a great time.
Hey, look, you're Coach Melissa for a reason.
I am.
And the people that you will coach and the sports that you will coach know no bounds.
This is
And
true.
this is why we love you.
I will do anything to just keep myself occupied and busy, apparently, or I will get suckered into trying anything at least once.
You'll do anything to just have a whistle around your neck,
That is so true. That is so
right?
yeah. Listen, you've had a whistle. Like
Yeah,
there's very few things in life more empowering than a good shrieking whistle.
it's true.
So yeah, it's a delight. We're having fun, but I am so tired. You people with kids, as a teacher who's getting ready to enjoy summer, I am so sorry for your next 2 months because it's a lot with the little ones. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to work every day, right? So
Yeah,
like
this is true.
things don't really change a ton for me in the summer, aside from it's a lot quieter in my house when I get up in the morning,
Yeah,
um, which
a lot
I
less
think
fighting and battling and
is mostly snoring still
and
from the children and the dogs. But I think that's good for everybody that
yeah.
the sleeping in is now happening. Melissa, sleeping in is happening for a lot of folks these days around TCU's campus because TCU baseball was 2 and Q in the Corvallis Regional this past weekend. A little surprising after the debate about whether or not they should have been a host, how they ended the regular season, how they ended the Big 12 tournament. Little surprising, I would say, that TCU ended up 0 and 2 this weekend at Oregon State.
Yeah, I mean, I think surprising is absolutely fair. I think been a lot of revisionist history well, no, there's been a lot of re-examining the season amongst Frog fans and a lot of opposing fan bases saying, oh, you guys thought you should have host. I don't necessarily think that going 0 and 2 in Corvallis means that TCU did not deserve to be considered as a host team.
I
But I
agree.
think, I don't think that result, hindsight's 2020, whatever. But I do think it was disappointing in how they lost, but also emblematic of some of the concerns that we've brought up here time and time again on the podcast, right? And that people that have watched this team game in and game out have also seen the bats picked a really bad time to go quiet, as you said, and then also it felt like for a group of young guys, only two of whom in the starting lineup had any postseason experience, and only one of them had ever really started a postseason game. I don't know if the pressure got to them, the travel got to them, but this was not the TCU team that we saw Friday night in Arlington was not the same TCU team that we saw for the next week plus.
Yeah, they picked a really tough weekend to play some not great baseball, and it wasn't. I think the thing that took me by surprise was just the overall inconsistency. Not just it's okay. Well, they're not hitting well this weekend, but the pitching typically picks them up, or the pitching didn't get much from your starters, but the bats typically have picked guys up over the course of the season. You only got 5 innings of work from your 2 starters on the weekend. You had 8 balls in play that left the infield on Friday against USC. It was really, really tough to see a lot of mistakes in the field that didn't necessarily register as errors on the scoreboard, but were still mistakes. Decisions about where to throw the ball, decisions about not throwing the ball, not hitting cutoffs, that kind of thing. That just was such a departure from what we had seen for the majority of the season from this team. Now, we had seen some of these things crop up over the course of the year, and that's normal for a 50-game baseball season. That's also normal when you're talking about mostly sophomores and freshmen. But I think the reality is that this weekend in Corvallis was just kind of a culmination of all of the bumps and bruises that TCU had experienced throughout the season, and none of the good that they had done throughout the season, which is really just tough to see. But I also don't think, like you said, I don't think it defines their overall season, and I don't think it defines whether or not they were worthy of hosting. But that discussion is kind of behind us at this point, as teams play while we're recording to try and make it to a super regional, as Murray State tries to hold on against Ole Miss, and
Go Racers.
LSU and Little Rock get underway here. Some real fun upsets that could still happen in the world of college baseball tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, this looked like a team that had replaced 7 of the 9 regulars in the lineup here on any given night, including the pitching, and that has a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And Kirk has said this time and time again, at this point in the year, they're no longer freshmen. But at the end of the day, they're still young players experiencing something for the first time. And at times that really showed. And even a guy like Jack Bell, who's been so steady, and Cole Kramer have not been in a lot of those high leverage NCAA situations. Jack Bell played on a team that played in a national championship, but he was a spot player. And, now you're asking him to play multiple positions down the stretch with Carson out. And it just lead off, which is not a position that he's probably had a ton of experience with the last couple of years. But I don't want to excuse it, because they played bad baseball, and I think they'd be the first ones to tell you that. But there's a lot of reason to be excited for the future. I mean, and this is a team that played in the Big 12 championship game, and when we look at what Big 12 teams have done, I'm sorry, I keep adjusting my earphones, but my headphones, so my ears hurting me. But for the most part, we saw more good than bad, considerably more good than bad. This team, at worst, achieved expectations based on preseason, results and ratings and all of those types of things. They were ranked for most of the season. I think that the people that criticize, whether it's the offensive approach, the base running, the defense, the pitching, whatever you want to criticize, there are things to be criticized in each of those areas. But most of us looked at this team at the beginning of this year and said, man, if they can compete and they can learn and they can grow and they can put themselves in situations with stuff on the line, 2026 can be an incredibly special season. And nothing about what happened over the last, week or so makes me feel any differently about the future, outside of obviously a couple of pretty significant portal additions and some holes that are going to have to be filled. But disappointed, frustrated, very hard game to watch. Very, very hard games to watch on Friday and Saturday. Super hard game to watch Saturday night, but exciting game to watch against, Arizona in the Big 12 championship game. But I'm not going to write off this team or this coaching staff by any stretch of the imagination. And assuming that they, these young players take a step forward, like we saw Chase Brunson do. He's really the only returner, right? But some of these guys that, Anthony Silva, I think, really came on during Big 12 play. So, there's work to be done, but I like the fact that most of these guys seem committed to coming back and getting TCU back to Omaha.
So here are a couple of things for you. 39-20 is their final record this season. That win percentage of .661 is the highest in the Kirk Saarloos era. That includes 2023. Their Big 12 record of 19-11 in the regular season. Most Big 12 wins since joining the Big 12. Obviously, they moved from the 24 game schedule to the 30 game schedule starting in 2024. So there's a little bit of that. Second highest conference winning percentage since Kirk Saarloos has been in charge, aside from their 2022 season when they went 16-8 in the regular season, won the Big 12 regular season title that year. They went 9-4 in weekend series this season, including 7-3 on the weekends in Big 12 play. That's an improvement over 2024 when they went 6-6 in weekend series and 4-6 in series in Big 12 play. They swept 3 teams this year and were not swept. Last season they swept 4 teams and were swept twice. So really, truly, like, just when you look at the team, when you look at its schedule year over year, there were dramatic improvements from 2024 to 2025, which everybody said needed to happen, right? We said that needed to happen. I went back, like I said, last episode and listened to our preview series, our preview episode for the baseball season. And I said that I think the season would be considered a success if they made a regional final. So that didn't happen. And I think that everyone is disappointed. I think people are right and fair to be disappointed, especially in how the last 3 games of the season played out, where you're only scoring 4 runs over your last 28 innings of baseball. And still, I think overall, the season was successful in the context of, hey, is this thing heading in the right direction? So lots to look forward to, like you said, about 2026. But they've got some things that they're going to need to do this offseason to really set themselves up. And one of those things, Melissa, is replace Carson Bowen.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about this season and what things kind of defined this year. Carson Bowen stepping up, becoming the everyday first baseman, hitting leadoff, having the second best on base percentage on the roster. Those were big reasons why this team had the success that it had, especially in that stretch where it won, like, I think it was 13 of 14 games or something like that in the middle of the season. That was really when Carson started hitting leadoff, and that was when he started, being the everyday first baseman. And I think there was some continuity that guys could rely on, especially the younger guys. When you have a guy who's a veteran player, a veteran presence, who's seen everything, right? He saw Omaha as a true freshman. He saw him missing the postseason as a sophomore. He battled through his own slumps. He battled through hitting the ball hard and not getting any kind of good fortune. He's also had success personally at the plate and behind the plate. When you have a guy like that kind of anchoring the top of your lineup and being a consistent everyday presence, when that's taken away, that can do a lot of damage to your team. Especially, I don't know if you knew this, Melissa, he didn't travel with the team to Corvallis.
Yeah.
Neither did Ben Abelt, because they didn't have the hotel space in Corvallis to accommodate both of those guys.
Which is ridiculous.
You took 2 of TCU's biggest leaders off the board before the weekend even started. And that's not an excuse for why they played the way they did, but those are 2 leaders who have seen it all and done it all, who could have been voices of comfort and voices of confidence for some of the guys that were there all season that just all of a sudden weren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that losing, especially in baseball, it's such a mental game. Losing not just all of the things that you mentioned about Carson as a player, but just as a person. I mean, we saw him high-fiving guys in the dugout and wincing in pain as he did so, at the Big 12 tournament. I know we're just, both of us can speak so highly of Carson as a person, of his family. They're just really, that is a family that was committed to TCU, that loves TCU. Carson really fought to be on the field through, like you mentioned, some really, really devastating and potentially career-ending injuries on more than one occasion. He is. I don't think that there's a single TCU fan that wishes him anything but success. Let's hope he doesn't go somewhere in the Big 12 conference. But I think that his energy and, like, that's a guy, when Tommy was so amped up in that opener, Carson's the kind of guy, especially as a catcher as well, that can help, calm him down in the dugout and do those types of things. So I do think that, like I said, not an excuse whatsoever. I mean, that's not going to be the difference maker when you lose the way TCU lost, but certainly would have helped and maybe kept things from kind of spiraling the way that they ultimately ended up doing in both of those games. So Sucks. I want Carson to have whatever he wants in life, and he wants to probably play catcher and be an everyday starter, and that's going to be really hard for him to do at TCU. So I wish him nothing but the best. But I think that we can judge the 2025 season at this stage of the 2026 season. Like you said, I think you said it really perfectly well that we needed to see some steps forward. We saw those, but I think you get back to now where hosting and playing in a super regional and making a push for Omaha is the expectation seems unfair. I mean, watch this weekend. Like, there's absolutely no teams that have a birthright to Omaha. That's just not the way it's working right now. But this is a program that's used to seeing June baseball in their home field, and I think that it is fair to say that that needs to be the baseline goal in 2026.
100%. And I think Kirk acknowledges that as well, because he said, I think it was right before the Big 12 tournament or right after, he acknowledged that the expectation at TCU is not just to make the tournament. He said that's the lowest baseline, but the expectation is to host. The expectation is to be one of those top national seeds and to have the kind of success that TCU fans are used to having and have had over the last 20 years. And 2026, I think, is the season where it's all starting to come together, where it's the guys he fully brought in. It's the guys that, have developed here and have kind of put the blood, sweat, and tears in at Lupton mostly to get it done. And so the talent is going to be there in 2026. We know Stroh-Snyder's coming back. We know Franco's coming back. A lot of these young guys are sticking around. Tommy Lepore coming back. Cole Kramer, another year of eligibility, right? So you got some veteran leadership still.
Yeah.
And so you have all of the pieces of that core from this season that took a big step forward. And now the goal is for that core to take another big step forward in 2026. But like we said, Melissa, Carson Bowen is hitting the transfer portal. He's not the only Horned Frog that has hit the portal so far this offseason. In fact, there are 8 that are already in. Carson Bowen is arguably the biggest name. But there are 7 others. Camden Sauce, TCU infielder, is in the portal. He had made the move from third base to first base this offseason. Still couldn't quite break through into the lineup. Carson, obviously, his bat was wanted in the lineup, and so he had priority at first base. Isaac Cadena was another guy we saw at first base. Brody Green was another guy we saw at first base as well. So kind of a log jam at that spot. Carson Cormier, a pitcher who has spent 2 years on the roster here, never really broke through. Talented kid, really tall. He's like 6'6". Fastball velo's in the low 90s, has some good off-speed stuff. I'm sure he's going to find a really nice landing spot. Same with freshman Tommy Bridges and Andrew Carter, 2 more righties who just didn't see time this year, ended up using their red shirt, which is good. So they preserve that year of eligibility, and now they're going to have an opportunity to go and pitch somewhere. And then Jax Traeger, older brother of Nolan Traeger, finished his degree at TCU. He's got an accounting degree, finished that thing in 3 years, and now he's going to be able to grad transfer somewhere and have 2 years of eligibility. So really excited to see where Jax goes. And then Blake Rogers, who got to TCU, was a Baylor transfer, immediately had to have Tommy John surgery and just never really bounced back from that, which sucks. So he's looking for a new home as well. But Carson's kind of the biggest name. I don't know who else, if anybody from TCU, is going to hit the portal. There's always the opportunity for someone to get a phone call that they can't turn down. So you just never know until the portal closes, which happens on, I think, July 2nd. So, coaches have that countdown going in their phones that are on their wall calendars or whatever it is, that they just got to hang on to these guys for about 30 more days while they peruse the portal for some needs of their own. And I think there are a couple that we can break down here, Melissa, that I think TCU should prioritize this offseason.
Yeah, I definitely think that, obviously with Carson leaving and with Sauce entering the portal, like first base has probably got to be high up there. You've got to probably go get another starting pitcher. Obviously, Ben Abel is a big question mark. Cademan Parker is a question mark. Those guys are draft eligible, both coming off of kind of injury-riddled seasons. So do they come back? Are they healthy enough to come back? Those will be things. But I think that what happens in the outfield right? How that ends up playing out. Is Noah Franco going to move to DH so that he can? Are we going to see him pitch more his sophomore campaign? Isaac Cadena, is he going to still be an everyday player in this lineup? Is he going to like? What's his position going to look like? What do you do at first base? And then you didn't lose necessarily a lot of guys that pitched a lot of innings, but you did lose quite a bit off of your pitching staff, and so you've got to fill some holes there out of the bullpen as well. So I definitely think there's some work to be done. I think one thing that nobody argues with is that TCU staff can recruit. They can recruit at the high school ranks. They can recruit in the portal. They do have a really good signing class coming in. That obviously remains to be seen how the draft plays out. But I think you've said previously, and let me know if it's not true at this point, but that most of those guys are expected to make it to campus. There are probably one or two that might get some enticing offers, and then, as you mentioned, there's certainly going to be guys on TCU's roster that other schools come calling for, especially some of these SEC schools that lost a little bit earlier than they anticipated, or are making some big offseason moves with coaching and facilities and things like that.
Yeah, so it's a small signing class. It's a small incoming class for the Frogs this year, just 6 names on the list. And I think there's one that's really probably the biggest draft risk. That's the shortstop, Lucas Franco, who had another great year this year and is climbing draft boards. We'll see. I don't do percentages for these things because it's folly, but he's one to watch as the MLB draft approaches. And another one is Uli Fernsler, a left-handed pitcher out of Michigan, who's seen his stock just absolutely skyrocket over the last about 18 months or so. He's a guy who doesn't throw incredibly hard, but he's got that same kind of arm angle as Ben Abelt, where it's the 3/4. He comes across his body, really adds a lot of life to his off-speed pitches, and he's generating an insane amount of swings and misses this season. I can pull it up here really quickly. This is great for radio.
It's my favorite thing. I put Jamie in a position to have to research things in the middle of talking about something.
I got this message on May 13th, so a little over 2 weeks ago now, from one of his coaches who I've been talking to. His ERA at that point in the season was .362.
Oh, seems good.
And his WHIP was .414. So you're having a great season when your WHIP is less than 1 and it's still higher than your ERA.
How's his nay though? I'm sorry. I apologize. Been a little
that was
under
good.
the weather.
I'm disappointed that I didn't think of it first. You got the cough syrup advantage, though. That's boosting you right now.
Yeah.
Struggling. I've seen you mute and cough. We can keep this episode short for your sake, but
yeah, I have been muting though. I've at least hit the cough button a couple of times.
Yes,
so.
Grateful for that. Grateful for your awareness.
I'm at the age in life where my doctor was like, "Hey, you're a little bit younger than we normally do this, but you have asthma and some other mitigating circumstances. You should probably get a pneumonia shot."
Oh.
I am not old enough to need a pneumonia vaccine, except that apparently I am. And when I tell you that I have been suffering the consequences of this, and then Texas weather in May, June, which has been all over the place. So between my allergies and this god awful pneumonia shot, we're fighting through it right now.
There's something going around my office too. There are a couple people today who I looked at kind of sideways, saying, "Should you even be here? Maybe go home.
Yeah,
it's okay.
We don't want to talk to you.
It's not that serious."
Yeah.
If any of y'all are listening, I love you very much. And
but stay home tomorrow.
But seriously, work from home is an option. Every meeting we have has a Zoom link. So kind of taking a look at this roster, I agree with you. I think the need for a first baseman, a power bat that can kind of complement the Brunson, Stroh-Snyder, Franco trio would be really nice to see, preferably if it's me from the right side of the plate, because you were really lefty heavy this year, and that backfired a couple of times, right? We saw a couple of moments where Caden Aoki, Steve Aoki.
I kept thinking of him as the DJ, and I just freeze forever. Like he was remixing TC's bats. I'll say it that way.
He came in against Oregon State today in relief and was great again in his limited appearance, even though USC's kind of getting it handed to him right now.
Yeah.
No, they had a lineup where, just because of the youth and the abundance of lefties, they were a little handicapped, a little handcuffed against left-handed pitching. And so that's maybe something to address, as well as, can you go find another consistent right-handed bat? Because that's another thing that Carson Bowen gave you, was a a good amount of not necessarily true power, but he could hit the ball really hard from the right side of the plate, and you need more of that to keep your lineup balanced. So it'd be interesting to see there. And like you said too, just a bunch of question marks about Ben Abelt's future, about Cademan Parker's future, both of whom still have more eligibility at TCU. Obviously, Abelt coming off of the Tommy John surgery. Cademan's been dealing with something since he left that Fresno State start in early May or early March, excuse me, and then missed 2 weeks. He was never fully healthy again. I think that was pretty apparent to everybody who watched him try to go out there and grind it out. Even though he gave them 2 1/3 really nice innings up in Corvallis this weekend against Oregon State.
It was good to see him get to pitch, even in that situation.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if
time.
he was gonna throw. So it was really good to see him throw. You know, he's a kid I've known for a really long time, so just was good to see him back out there and have a little bit of success. But you got a lot of question marks. So can you go get another guy who has weekend starter experience to pair with Tommy Lepore? Is one of these guys who's a freshman going to step up into that third starter role, or will you have a guy like Ben Abelt or Cademan Parker to lean on for another season? This another question being, if those guys come back, do they automatically have right to that role? Like if Ben Abelt comes back, do you automatically just say, "Hey, you're the Sunday guy"?
Yeah.
I don't think that's how Kirk Saarloos tends to roll. I think in the fall he opens things up and tells guys it's a competition that you've got to go earn it. And to this point in his head coaching career, he hasn't really shown a ton of deference to guys that want to be weekend starters for him.
Yeah.
I would say the most deference he's shown is to Ben Abelt and Cademan Parker, though. So we'll see how things shake out.
Ben Abelt's still never been a weekend
Right.
starter.
That's 100% right.
Even if he comes back and stays, like he still has something to prove in that regard. And we've seen, like you talk about Uli Frenzler, if he shows up. I mean, we saw them pitch 4 or 5 freshmen pretty regularly. Like there's no doubt that he's going to get an opportunity to earn a role. So yeah, I mean, it puts a lot of things into question, but you know, I think that does Wichita State have a pitcher in the portal? Because God bless it, I hope they do. Because I would just, let's keep the pipeline going. But I think that if you are, you know, a successful mid-major or a kid that was highly touted that hasn't broken through at a big time program, there's a lot about TCU that would make you want to be a part of that program and a part of that team. I mean, the facilities are good. Yeah. The environment at Lupton is great, and you get to play with some really, really talented players who you saw at their best can be elite, and at their worst look like freshmen. So I think it's going to be an attractive. They're going to have a really good pitch to sell.
I agree.
To transfers.
I agree. And then one more thing you touched on that I just wanted to make a quick note of was the outfield. Sawyer Strohsnyder's going to be in the outfield next year. His shoulder was banged up. We knew that after his slide. I can't remember which series it was, Houston maybe or Tech, one of those earlier Big 12 series.
I think it was Houston.
Where he kind of messed up his shoulder a little bit. Wasn't quite right after that. Obviously tried to play right field, had the wall incident against Baylor, and at that point they were just like, yeah, we're not going to put you back out there. He's probably going to have a little bit of postseason surgery on that shoulder just to make sure everything's shored up. But I fully expect him to be in the outfield next year. You talk about left field. Is it going to be Isaac Cadena? Is it going to be a guy like Sam Myers? Is Noah Franco going to play out there? All to be determined. But I think the preference would be put Noah Franco in a position to either earn a weekend starter role, right, and then play in the outfield the rest of the time and free up the DH spot, or kind of what he did this year, DH. That way you can come in and relief whenever you want and go right back to DHing again. I think either of those two things would probably be preferable for the Frogs. But with Chase Brunson, Strohsnyder, Franco, Sam Myers, I think the outfield, Isaac Cadena, I think the outfield's in really good shape, frankly. They've done an incredible job of recruiting outfielders. Shout out to John DeLora, who is the recruiting coordinator and also coaches the outfielders for TCU. So anytime you see an outfielder make a phenomenal play, credit their athleticism and then credit John DeLora for that.
In that order, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Send him a message. Say, hey, great work. But yeah, you know, as we get it further into June, we're going to see a lot clearer of a picture of what the roster is going to fully look like, what guys get to campus from the MLB draft, what guys end up returning that maybe we weren't expecting to return, and who ends up coming from the transfer portal. So all stuff to keep eyes on here at Frogs Insider. We're going to do that for you. I'm going to be writing about it over at Horned Frog Blitz as well. Melissa,
Jamie,
Dennis Franchione and Gary Patterson, two legendary names, connected forever. One probably gets a little bit more credit for the resurrection of TCU football than the other, although I think Dennis Franchione's role, while maybe overlooked a little bit, is not insignificant.
Patterson doesn't happen if Franchione didn't happen first.
That is correct. And if I'm stumbling over my words right now, it's because I just looked up and saw that Little Rock was beating LSU 3-1 in a winner go home game in Baton Rouge.
And we're in the 9th inning, Murray State hanging on for literal dear life.
Hanging by their thumbs off a cliff. Can they do it? We will see. Bottom of the 9th. My goodness, college baseball is electric, and I love it so much. But we're going to talk football for a second here, Melissa, because Dennis Franchione and Gary Patterson are both on the ballot for this year's College Football Hall of Fame. And I think it's really cool that both of them are on there at the same time. I think it's cool that they have the opportunity to go in together because, like you said, they are forever linked here at TCU. Yeah, that's just a fun note. I didn't really have anything else to talk about other than to note it. So if you've got something, now would be a great time.
I mean, I will add this to it, that Alabama fans forever owe a debt to Dennis Franchione as well, because if he doesn't leave TCU to go to Alabama, in that tenure doesn't, unfortunately for Coach Fran and kind of poorly, Nick Saban maybe does not end up there. And there's a lot of dominoes that TCU is responsible for when it comes to college football length and legend. So. Are you looking to make a point, or are you glued into the game?
I have a question. No, I have a question. 0-2 count on the leadoff hitter of the inning, though, for Murray State. If Dennis Franchione has the same success as Nick Saban did at Alabama,
oh my God,
I'm not going to say, first of all, how does TCU remember Dennis Franchione here? And then what does Nick Saban's career look like? Because I think Nick Saban probably is just a lifer at LSU. And those LSU-Alabama matchups still give us great entertainment for years and years and years.
So, yes, with the caveat that I still think if Nick Saban had had the level of success that he would have been capable of having at LSU, with the caveat that if Alabama was having the same level of success, it probably doesn't happen. But I still think he would have gone pro. I think Nick Saban was wired to take a detour to the professional ranks, which he did between LSU and Alabama. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So Miami. He went to Miami. So I still think he would have gone to Miami or somewhere and done that. But I think that if Gary Patterson has his career post Franchione, even if Franchione has that level of success at Bama, I don't think anybody at TCU thinks differently about Coach Fran, because Alabama at that point had far more resources. I mean, they still do, but had vastly different resources and opportunities than TCU did. So if Patterson still brings TCU to the Big 12, plays in the Rose Bowl, all of those things, I don't think that anyone harbors any ill will. And even with I was a student back then, God, I'm old. Even with the way that he left, as crushing as that was as a TCU fan, to see that team finally get out of the literal gutter and have a taste of success, and to see what the future could be, only to have your coach leave for Alabama. That was a tough pill to swallow, because that kind of made you the stepping stone job, the little sister, the little brother job, all of those things kind of started to feel real. And then Patterson so quickly established that he could be the guy to do great things there, that everybody was kind of like, oh, this is how it was supposed to be.
That made me think, is the gap between TCU and Alabama greater now or in the year 2000? That's a podcast for another time.
That's a great off-season podcast. I love that idea.
Question fester.
Yeah. We'll have to put a poll out too when we do that.
We'll have to
get some reader input, because I think that would be a great off-season pod.
I think that, remember that old hit, what was the debate series we did at Frogs of War for a while?
Oh,
Maybe
yes.
we resurrect that in podcast form. We each take a side of the argument
I love that idea.
and do a little off-season banter.
Look at us, content planning right here live on the pod. That's
Live radio show.
delightful. I
We're
love
doing
this.
great.
This is us. This is
Sorry,
perfect.
that's on me.
No,
We
no.
are.
I think it's awesome. I think
I'm
people. I'd
so.
love to see the process.
It's 4-1 now, Little Rock. They're
God bless them.
LSU is squarely in the danger zone of getting their ass beat twice by the Little Rock Trojans, who had a losing record coming into the NCAA tournament. So,
And didn't they need to do something insane at the end of the season to even make it? Like, didn't they win?
yeah, I mean they had to win their conference.
Yeah, but
to make the tournament.
Didn't they make a late regular season run?
I don't remember.
I saw something on Twitter. I don't know.
They had a losing record in conference this year,
Insane.
and like I don't think it's Missouri Valley. Is it the OVC? I can't remember.
Probably.
Anywho,
Nobody's
they had a
happier
losing
about
record.
this than TCU baseball right now.
I'm not
because
having a good time with it.
we are
Definitely
not.
me.
Yeah, we are not
Hey.
the worst.
35 minutes into this bad boy, though, let's talk TCU track and field because they are the only program still rolling for the Horned Frogs right now. There are several men and women who are headed to the national championships in Eugene, Oregon. Melissa, break it down. Who all is going to be there? Who should we be paying attention to? What are they competing in?
Yeah, so TCU, turns out we have some fast frogs.
It's 5-1 Little Rock.
Oh, let's go, Little Rock. I don't even know your mascot, but I am shouting it in
They're
my
the
head.
Trojans, baby. Come on.
So incredible, so incredible. They are the Trojans?
Yeah, Little Rock Trojans.
Wow, that's incredible. So TCU has 17 total athletes/teams competing in the outdoor championships coming up in Eugene, as you mentioned. I'm going to get a lot of these names wrong, and I'm going to apologize in advance, but we do definitely want to celebrate them. This TCU 4x100 team is absolutely unbelievable. Just what they've done all season has been incredible. I think they won the Penn Relays. Unbelievable speed. Ran a 43-13 to finish fifth, and I think the top five qualify. So Tiana Harlan, Iana Gray, let's see here, London Tucker, and India Mayberry as that 4x100 team, which is just unbelievable work that they did. 100 meter hurdles, again, got a qualifier there, and I am going to butcher this name. I am so sorry. Amari Kiluvia, I believe. So in the 100, she was the first female to punch an individual ticket. An indoor national 200 meter champion will also be competing for an outdoor national 200 meter champion. And India Mayberry, who's qualified for multiple events, just a freshman.
She's a demon.
Yeah,
she is so fast.
If you follow any TCU athletics accounts, you have seen the like other sports accounts and the main page. Like, she is special. Like, TCU, this is an elite track athlete that is just a freshman that has been blowing people out of the water. There was a clip going around, I think, from that race. I can't remember if it's the 100 or the 200, but there were TCU athletes in that race, and there was this one girl that just like blew everyone out of the water, went against, and I was like, no, I'm paying attention to the TCU athletes in this. So, and then the 4x400 relay also qualified for on the women's side. So a couple of teams, a couple individual events, really cool. And then the men got 5 tickets as well. Another 4x100 relay. Like the 4x100s for TCU, both men's and women's this season, have been absolutely unbelievable. They've been really exciting to watch. That is, let's get this right, Coolidge Eanes, Kashi Crockett. I know Kashi's another guy that people, like, I've seen him all over social. He's absolutely been killing it this season. Jordan Parker and Sanjay Salman. They qualified at the 4x100. They ran a season best 39.44 at the best possible time to punch their ticket out west. And then let me see here. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. And then a javelin thrower, Preston Kuznov, as javelin qualified as well. So a lot of runners, a lot of sprinters. TCU's had some really exceptional sprinters. We've had several Olympians come out of that program. So it's cool to see a field event as well qualify in the outdoor. I know they had some field event competitors in the indoor season. So overall, huge shout out to TCU Track and Field, a program that we do not give enough attention and love to, that certainly deserves all the kudos. And they are the only, like you said, the only TCU athletics program still competing at this stage. What is it now? What is the score?
Murray State got it done.
They got it done. Let's go.
Ole
Murray
Miss
State.
goes down 12-11. Murray State Racers, the 4 seed in the Oxford Regional, are moving on
Unbelievable.
to the Super Regionals, where they will face Duke.
Wow. Let's go.
Very cool.
Let's go Racers. We talked about racing and racers.
Also, Landry Burdine, I'm never wrong, and it was never in doubt.
I did see that he accused you of potentially jinxing them.
No such thing as jinxes. It was never in doubt.
Landry Burdine, I appreciate you calling Jamie out. Hey, shout out to, speaking of baseball, shout out to the Burdine boys.
Yes.
Yeah, heck of a postseason run.
Having a great season at Alito.
Yeah, unbelievable work as per usual for those two. A couple of future college athletes. One going to Trinity for football, right? And one going to Air Force Academy for baseball, I believe.
That is
Am I correct on that?
That is really correct.
Landry is an unbelievable frog. It's been fun watching his boys grow up on the sidelines and seeing them around campus all the time. So we're super proud of those boys and excited for though they will not be attending TCU, they carry a lot of purple blood. So we'll be cheering them on.
Absolutely, we will. Absolutely, we will. Just like we're going to be cheering for Carson Bowen and a bunch of these other guys who have made their way here, at least for a little bit of time. Anywho, Frog fam runs deep.
Yeah.
Bleed purple or bleed out, to quote Kenny Kane.
Yes, Kenny Kane, the GOAT.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. She's Melissa Treebwasser. I am Jamie Plunkett. We will be back soon to talk a little more track and field, talk baseball transfer portal, and have some debates this offseason.
Yeah.
About like random stuff that has to do with TCU.
Yeah.
But until then, we'll talk to you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.